to Best in Faction.
The Next Generation.
A podcast where we definitely don't complain about Tau.
Not even a little bit. I am your host, Tyler Bortel.
I am Nick.
And I'm Lucas.
And today we are wild excited to be bringing you some more tournament coverage. It's been a couple weeks since the Las Vegas Open, and we've got a brand new GT to hear about. It only features one of us, and fortunately he didn't go 0-5. I think we've got a real special sauce for you. We are talking about our boy Nicholas Olsen Johnson, the one and only NOJ, going 4-1, second place, baby, with Necrons. Not Tau, not Custodes, Necrons, baby. That's what's up. We are going to have a fantastic time breaking this down, and we're just going to get right into it.
That was that intro was that was hype.
I'm excited.
Yeah, awesome. How are you feeling, Nick, about the tournament last weekend? How are things up there at the pecking order?
Yeah, I had a week to reflect on it now. It was super fun. I went to one of Chase's tournaments back in October of last year, and I was really impressed with how he ran things. So super excited to go to this one. I've been looking forward to it for months. So, and I was glad that I was going in expecting it to be like a testing tournament. I knew that Tau and Custodes were going to be very present, and I didn't really expect to. I would have been happy with 3-2. Let's put it that way. And I expected this to be like a gathering data sort of week, and ended up going 4-1. And I also learned some interesting things. So happy about that.
Heck yeah.
Awesome. Well, before we dive right in, Lucas, you want to plug some stuff?
Yeah. So we've not done this yet, and we really should have. We're guessing that most of you folks come from the BIFPOD Discord. But if you do not come from the BIFPOD Discord, you should totally join the Discord. The way you do that is you go to patreon.com/bestintabletop. And you get access to chatting with all of us and many other folks who know much more about 40K than us. And so they can help you become better players. It's just a great community, honestly. There's every kind of chat you could ever want in there. Just so many things to whittle away the hours in the day on, but all of it's fun. So, yeah, the Discord is, I don't know about you guys, but it's like 80% of my social interaction these days. And all of it feels good. It's really fun. So
definitely the best 40K Discord I've ever been in.
Yes, so. By far and away. So yeah, if that sounds at all interesting to you, head on down to patreon.com/bestintabletop, and I think it's either $5 or $10.
$10 a month right now. You come on in. You can talk to us. You can talk to the hosts of every other show and all the other listeners. We got all sorts of crazy brainiacs in there. We got Art of War people in there. They like it better than the Art of War one. Don't tell anybody I said that. But it should be it'd be a great time. We'd love to have you come chat about maybe Necrons. All right, Nick. So we're all about this GT today. Let's get your beautiful army up here on screen. And
there it is.
Let's talk about your list. First off, I want to admire your lovely paint jobs. Very cool looking stuff. Loving the very non-traditional with the yellows and the purples and the bright blues. Blue on the Silent King especially. Very cool. Anyway, Let's jump right into it. Nick, what did you take to the pecking order GT?
Yeah, I took a Necron list made up of 3 detachments, a patrol, a vanguard, and a supreme command. And that combined with all of my, warlord traits and relics had me starting with 8 command points. I chose a custom dynasty. There's really only 2 common Necron dynasties you see these days. It's Eternal Conquerors plus Relentlessly Expansionist, which is army-wide objective secured. And if you're already objective secured, you count as 2 models. And Relentless Expansionist, which is at the start of the first battle round, you may move 6 inches. But it's before either player's turns begin. Very, very useful. I had the Silent King leading the army in the Supreme Command. He was forced to be my warlord. I had a Technomancer with the Veil of Darkness. So that's the once per game, pick him and a core unit up and drop them outside of 9 of enemy units. A reroll charge aura for core units, which is super useful now because pretty much everything in this list is core. Cryptic Arcana that gives a Canoptek unit +1 attack to the unit, like +1 attack per model in the command phase. Super useful. And then I had a Catacomb Command Barge with the Voltaic Staff relic. It's like a supercharged Tesla staff, -1 damage warlord trait. For my troops, I had just 5 immortals. They mostly kind of like run around and do actions for me. 3 squads of 4 wraiths with the claws. So that's the harder hitting weapon. That's strength 6 -2/2. 2 squads of 5 Scorpec destroyers. So these are these destroyers that walk around and they have melee weapons. A squad of 4 Scorpecs. Don't know why I accidentally put 1x4 scarabs. It's supposed to be 1x3 scarabs. Just a small squad of 3 scarabs. 2 squads of 6 flayed ones, which innately deep strike, so they're great for retrieve Nachman data. 2 just single plasma sites. These are little separate units that run around and buff up the Scorpex and also can do some other kind of secret sauce, which is pretty useful. A Hexmark Destroyer, the Gauntlet of the Conflagrator, so really good at killing 1 wound horde units. He also has a pretty neat intercept stratagem, so I brought him mostly to try to stop people's retrieve Nachman data. I figured a lot of people would be trying to do that. And then 2 just single Locust Heavy Destroyers. So these guys are just one shot that's like 3d3 damage. So pretty useful at cracking those transports just wandering around.
Awesome. And what would you say is like your big picture game plan with this list? Before you even know anything about your opponent, what is this list trying to do on a game to game basis?
Yeah. So the list is pretty much spamming toughness 5 high wound bodies. The wraiths are toughness 5 3 wounds. The Scorpex are toughness 5 3 wounds. Both have a 3-up armor. The wraiths all have 4-up invulns, and the Scorpex have a ability to reactively gain -1 to wound for a CP. It can be used in the shooting or the fight phase, and it lasts till end of the round. So the list is fairly tanky. It is also pretty fast. Now that the Scorpex and Wraiths are core, they benefit from the +1 move aura from the Command Barge and the King. So that brings the Wraiths up to 13-inch movement and the Scorpex up to 9. So what they'll end up doing is just kind of rushing my opponent down. I recently just was playing melee orcs, so I've been trying the same kind of strategy where I throw a bunch of T5 bodies in their DZ really early and ask them if they can kill them or not. And yeah, that's pretty much it. There's not many guns. The guns that it does have are good at like cracking the transports, like I said. Like, the King's got 2 giant shots. The Locust Heavies have 2 giant shots. So yeah, mostly just threat overwhelming people.
Cool. Sounds good. And going in, is this list built with particular secondaries in mind?
Yes, so that's something that I actually love about this list. Most of the time, we always talk about, or a lot of other players and us as well have talked about how making sure there's like 2 secondaries like built into your list is super important. This list can actually like take 3, which is great. Now, depending on my opponent, that third one might change. Like maybe they'll give up a better one, or maybe that one is worse. But the 2 that I like almost always take, the first one is Stranglehold. Stranglehold, just hold 3 objectives and more than your opponent at the end of your turn. Super easy when your entire army's objective secured. So that one's a no-brainer. The next one is Retrieve Nachman data. I have the 2 Flayed One squads. They just deep strike for free. Really hard to screen out 28mm bases. And then the Immortals, what they do is they start in one corner on my side, and then by turn 4, they're over in the other corner. They pretty much always get 12 on Retrieve Nachman data. Last one is Code of Combat. So this is a Necron-specific secondary. It's in the No Mercy, No Respite category. It gives you 3 victory points each time a noble unit kills an enemy unit. And in my list, the nobles are the Silent King and the Catacomb Command Barge. So, oh, and the other crazy thing about this is it can be scored multiple times in a turn. There's no like 3 per turn limit. If the King walks out and kills 3 units, you just get 9 BP right there. So what's great about that is like if the King gets focused down early, my Command Barge can kind of clean up late game and still give me points on that.
Very cool. Makes sense. Anything else you want to say about this before we jump into your round 1?
I got a couple questions if I can hop in.
Yeah, if you got any
go for it,
questions,
please.
I'm curious about a couple of the, I mean, not unusual takes, but people when they see Necron lists are used to things like the King and Wraiths and Scarabs and Immortals, just a squad of 5. What about things like the Hexmark? What about the Plasma Sites? What are those like individual models doing for you, and why did you choose to take them?
Yeah, so the Hexmark, so I had my whole list was 1995 points. So I had the Hexmark 75, Chronomancer's 80. So I could have taken the Chronomancer, which was like a much safer pick, I feel like. It just gives a 5-up invul to a core unit, so it would have been giving like a Scorpex squad of 5-up invul every turn, which would have been useful. But I figured with the new missions, everyone is trying to like think of, okay, what 2 secondaries does my list do? And a really, really easy one for a lot of books is retrieve Nachman data. Like, I mean, back when we had deploy scramblers and Rod, every list pretty much took those. So I figured, okay, the Hexmark has this stratagem for 1 CP where he can appear out of Deep Strike. Like he starts in Deep Strike for free. He'll appear out of Deep Strike after your opponent sets up a unit and then shoots them. It's an intercept stratagem, but other than like, like Auspex where they can avoid it by staying like more than 12 away from you, this guy goes, nope, and he pops out and shoots you. So I figured all these fragile units that people would be like, putting in Deep Strike or putting in strat reserves, he could pop out and kill them and just mess up my opponent's secondary plan, which would have been great. And they either see that and try to go for R&D and I mess up their R&D, or they see that and go, oh dang, I can't take R&D, and now they're like sweating trying to think of what's my second secondary now. So I was just trying to throw something like a wrench in there.
Yeah, as a GSC player, that idea is terrifying. I'm relying on a 5-man Acolyte squad all the time for R&D because the Deep Strike gets out of 6, and you being able to say, oh no, if you do that, you're getting shot to pieces. Especially now that R&D, like every model you kill matters. Like that was a less big deal with Rod when it was like, oh well, I gotta kill all the dudes in the squad. But now you kill them down to 1 or 2 dudes, and they're probably not getting it off. That's a really smart tech choice for the current meta of the missions.
Yeah. Also, I thought there might be some GSC players there. Besides just like messing with R&D, a lot of people like to take that 3d6 charge Deep Strike squad with 10 of them. And I think the Hexmark kills like 5 on average when he intercepts them. So being able to pop up, kill half the squad, and then mess up their Return to the Shadows plays, because now there's like the unit they wanted to charge and the Hexmark next to them. Didn't see any GSC at the tournament though, so I'll be waiting.
That's a pretty brutal combo because you can, when you bring him in from Deep Strike to intercept remotely, he can just land anywhere, right? As long as his guns are within range. I mean, anywhere outside of 9, right?
Yeah. He appears. He has to be outside of 9, and he can appear within 18.
Yeah, that's pretty brutal. I'm also glad you brought up deploy scramblers. I don't know if you guys have noticed this parallel, but lately with everyone taking Rod and just assuming they're going to get it, it kind of reminds me of the very beginning of 9th edition when the sage advice from everyone was just take deploy scramblers. It's a reliable 10. And figuring out ways to counter that is pretty cool. Because I feel like most people had kind of figured out how to screen out Rod, and now somehow with Retrieve Nachman, everyone is just taking it. I'm kind of confused what's happening with that. But taking models like the Hexmark that just mess with your opponent's ability to score 4 or 8 or more points, that seems like a value proposition. Even if it only matters in a few games, then it's a big deal, right? And you're not going to notice it, and you're only going to notice it when your opponent doesn't take the secondary.
Yeah.
And takes a suboptimal secondary choice as a result. So I think the Hexmark, I mean, he terrifies me. My Storm Boys want no piece of that.
Yeah. He's also deep strikeable OBSEC, which is cool. And Necron's command protocols, they radiate 6 inches from characters, and he's a character, so I could deep strike him into like drop command protocols if I have like maybe a unit off on a flank that's not near characters. So he has some use other than the intercept, but that's mostly why I bring him.
Does he give the +1 to move aura or no?
No, that's only from the command barge and the king.
So that's nobles, basically. Okay.
Yeah, pretty much the lords. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, and then the plasma sites. So these are a weird take. So these guys are 15-point models. They have like 1 wound, right? And you might be like, okay, well, they're gonna die. They're just gonna get shot. Well, they have character protection. They have lookout, sir, if they're within 3 inches of a friendly destroyer squad. So that's pretty useful. They can't do action, sadly, so I can't just have these little guys run around like bannering all the time, which would be funny, but they can't. But they can, I mean, they're just a unit. So first off, the big thing that they do is at the start of either my charge phase or either player's fight phase, they target a friendly destroyer unit of mine, and they just give the whole squad +1 strength, +1 attack, which is a crazy buff. The downside is you have to roll a d6, and if you roll a 1, one of the Scorpex heads just explodes and he dies. So it's a 1 in 6 chance to kill your guy. But the thing I love about this is like you get to choose the risk. You get to basically decide, okay, is the extra strength, extra attack worth it? And like, is losing this guy like really worth it? The risk. The thing is, playing Necrons, like you kind of feel like you're playing down sometimes. So a lot of times I'm like, sure, I'll go for that 1 in 6. And even if it kills the guy, sometimes it's just better to have +1 strength, +1 attack on the score.
How many attacks does the score pack have?
So score packs, there is put it this way. There's paired blades and there's a big reap blade. So the reap blade guy has 3 attacks. It's strength 7 -4 3, and the paired blades have 4 attacks. It's strength 5 -3 2. And you're only allowed to take a reap blade per every 3 score packs. You're actually forced to take it. So like the third one and the 6th one have to be the big blade.
Gotcha. Okay. So at that point, even if you kill a guy from a 5-man squad, you're still net neutral or positive, depending on what kind of guy you want to get rid of on attacks. Obviously, losing a guy sucks, but like it's not like you're losing combat output as a result, just not getting what you were hoping to.
Yeah,
and the strength is
+1
nice,
strength.
yeah.
+1 strength's like usually +1 to wound. Combine that with the core stratagem for +1 strength, and you can also combine that with Hungry Void. You can give these guys +3 strength in a fight phase if you need to.
What is their base strength / with their weapons? You know.
The paired blades are strength 5. The big blades strength 7.
You can push the paired blades to strength 8. That's pretty sick.
Yeah,
Nice. Okay.
it's pretty nice. And the last thing about the plasma sight, since it's a separate unit, moves 8 inches. It can fly, so it's really easy to just move it around. It's like on a little 28mm. There were multiple times during the tournament I'd go to be like, I'm going to charge with my Scorpix, but that Overwatch looks scary. I'm going to charge with the plasma sight now. Now they have to decide, do I Overwatch the plasma sight and kill it, which they like don't want to. And so it just soaks up Overwatch for my Scorpix, which is great.
Fantastic. Alrighty. You guys ready to jump into round 1?
Yeah.
Sweet. Let's do it. So you roll up to the tournament. You got yourself some ambitions. You got yourself a pretty snazzy looking list with some cute tech. And round 1, you get 1,000 Suns. What's going through your mind here?
Yeah. Do we want to go over the list at all?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah. Go read it off. Look at
read out the list for the benefit of podcast listeners. So round 1, you play against 1,000 Suns, specifically Cult of Time. For those who aren't aware, Cult of Time, what they do is they basically revive a model a turn with the psychic power. There are 3 HQs in this detachment. It's a battalion. He's got Airman. He's got an Exalted Sorcerer with the Dark Matter Crystal that chooses a unit in the command phase and teleports it, very similar to the Veil of Darkness. Similar, not exactly. And he's got a Demon Prince with a Conniving Plate and -1 damage. He's got 3 squads of 10 Rubrique. He's got a squad of 9 Rubrique with Flamethrowers. He's got a squad of 10 Terminators with what I assume are 2 Missile Racks, 2 Soul Reaper Cannons, and 2 Rhinos. So very bog standard, lots of OBSEC, lots of fairly durable bodies. How'd you handle this, Nick?
Yeah, so we played on Abandoned Sanctuaries. That is a new mission. It's Dawn of War with 1 objective in either player's deployment zone and 3 in the middle. So 5 objectives. I took my standard Stranglehold and Retrieve Nachman data. I debated taking, so normally into 1,000 Suns, I play against a lot of 1,000 Suns because Tanner Ebert and Kim Lors, they are locals that play T-Suns, and I've played into them a lot. They like to take Spawn. So when they take Spawn, that pushes the wounds into, makes it pretty easy to take no prisoners, but this list didn't have any Spawn. So it was like no prisoners was like a 9 or a 10. It wasn't that great. Now, my experience with T-Suns, Abhor seems like a good pick into them, but they're actually a lot tankier than you would expect. So I'll often like beat T-Suns, but like not table them. So I didn't pick Abhor because I was worried I wouldn't table them and I would lose out on that. So I ended up taking Coda Combat because I thought I'd chip for a couple turns, and then my nobles, the king and the command barge, would come in late game and clean them up. So I ended up winning this game, 87-48. My opponent went first and played very defensively, which is what T-Suns want to do, but he played like a little too defensively. He kind of sat in the back. He took Stranglehold, but didn't really come out to contest the objectives. And something that T-Suns really, really don't like is they don't like damage 2 because they can't use all his dust against that. All his dust is, the +1 save against damage 1. And they don't like things that are like AP2 or higher because that's putting them on their invul most of the time. And that's pretty much my entire army is. So I'll damage 2 in the melee phase, which is super important because they have a -1 damage strat that only works in the shooting phase. So they can't reduce my damage. All my stuff's AP2 or better. And all my stuff's pretty fast. Like the rates go 13, the score picks go 9. So he threw like some stuff on the side objectives behind walls, some rhinos, and I just hit a flank super hard with all my rates in a command barge turn 1. and he has to answer it. So he comes over there, and he's definitely able to smite a squad down. So that's the weakness of or that's something you got to watch out for playing into T-Suns, is if you throw like a Necron squad or just like kind of off to the side, Aramon will come over there and blast it down with mortals. But Aramon had to answer 12 wraiths, and he doesn't have the damage output to clear that. So he hit that flank pretty hard, but didn't clear the wraiths. I was able to fall back and charge and just kill Aramon with the wraiths, because wraiths can fall back and charge. And at that point, it was just kind of like running around and cleaning up his characters. And the king was able to push forward. He made a unique choice where he deep struck his Terminators this game, and I left like a corner in my back field, kind of like a bait, because it wasn't like a great position for him to be in, and he decided to go down that way. So he had 10 Terminators like in my back left corner that basically didn't participate in the game, and I was able to just roll over the army. Yeah, so I'll say biggest weakness that T-Suns have is getting rushed, and that's exactly what I did to win the game. I could have got 97, I realize, so that's a mistake that I made. This was my first game of the day, so I was like a little nervous. I was kind of like, this was only like my third or fourth game with the list, so I made a mistake one turn where I forgot to bring flayed ones in, and so I missed out on R&D on that. So I tried to go for it really quickly, like turn 5, and I was like, okay, I need to just not roll a 6 on this like squad of 5 score effects. I veil the darkness of the back corner, and I rolled a 6, so I missed out on 12 with that. Also, Code ended up not being a great pick because I tabled him. I should have picked a poor. Code, I only got 9 on because when I sent in my Scorpex to Chip, they actually just like one-shot the 10-man rubric squads. Now, he did fail a lot of his invols. Like, I think he should have been leaving like 2 or 3 models alive for like, the king to clean up. But Scorpex hit really hard is what I learned in this game. And I leveraged that knowledge in every matchup after that.
Nice. If I might comment on that, I would say what you just told me makes me think that Code was a really good pick, because if you table him, you win the game. Mm-hmm. If you don't table him, you get more Code points. You have a more likely chance of winning the game.
That's fair. Yeah. I guess I was like, ooh, there was like, if I'd gone down my initial thought, I could have gotten more points. But irrelevant to the total score,
yeah. Good stuff.
Yeah, at the end of the game, I couldn't have gotten better than second place because the first place was 5-0.
Yeah, if you want a better chance of winning the game, take Code. If you want a better chance of scoring 100, take Abhor. Yeah. Right.
Sure.
Yeah, exactly. I think into most T-Suns players, though, you should probably take Code. You'll probably get 15 on it. This was just a bit of a unique case where he kind of sat in his deployment zone, really scared of my army, and I just smushed him.
Just to be clear, though, if I'm reading this right, he gives up, 3, 6, 9, 12, 13, 14 points if you table him on a poor? Right, if you properly table him. Am I counting that right? 9 for the 3 characters, and then 5 for the 5 units?
Isn't each unit 2 points?
Each unit is 2 points.
Oh, they're 2. Oh, I thought they were 1. Oh, yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah, also, no prisoners is 13. I'm pretty sure.
What? Oh, because these are 2 apiece. Yeah, because the rubrics are 2,
40
4,
times
6.
2 plus 10 times 3.
Yeah.
Plus the 2 points for either way. I mean, all 3 of those were good, and all 3 of them were going to score you at least a 10, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah. I was like, I also enjoy Code. It's kind of like a fun little mini game, running around trying to finish people off with the nobles.
Yeah, it's fun for you.
yeah, it's fun.
Cool. All right. Anything else either of you guys want to say about this game? Oh, we got I forgot to flip to the picture of it.
Very nice. So this was actually early. I think in that back left corner, that's where the Terminators came in. So I just pounced on them with some score packs, and the barge is over there, hoping to finish them off for some Code points. The king's over there in the top right. That's the flank he pushed down, while my wraiths, you can see them there in the top left, are killing Aramon right there, I think. A big weakness with T-Suns, too, is they don't have any way to fall back and charge or like fall back and shoot. So I just kept tagging him with wraiths, and he basically, only way he could do damage was smite me out. They're really bad in melee. The Terminator squad's pretty good in melee. It's like 3 attacks each at AP3 damage too. But the rubrics, it's like the only guy that hits hard is the sorcerer, and even then he's got 3 attacks with like maybe reroll 1s to hit if there's a sorcerer nearby. So if you play a melee army, like rushing T-Suns with your damage too in melee and just tagging them, you can just probably consolidate into them and you'll just roll over them.
Yep.
So you just don't want to have like a unit isolated. If unit's isolated, they will come over and smite it. It'll die.
Cool. Alrighty. Let's jump in. Okay, so you've defeated 1,000 Suns. You've treated yourself to a much deserved lunch, I imagine. And round 2, you run into Custodes, the big bad wolves of the meta, Mr. 72% win rate faction. Check out our buddies over at 40K Fight Club to hear about just how disgusting this faction is. And interestingly, you're playing Shadowkeepers. Emperor's Chosen, sort of the consensus hotness, but Shadowkeeper's sort of at a close second there. Much better into the mirror. So he doesn't have the 4-up feel no against mortals. He can't Deathwatch his squads around, but he picks up, what is it, like a -1 attack and something else? What one of y'all knows?
It's reroll wounds against characters.
Reroll wounds against characters. Gotcha. Okay. So with this Shadowkeepers battalion, we got Mr. Worldwide, that is to say an Alaris captain with the Praetorian plate and something else, I'm sure. The things that make him more durable. We got a bike captain with Lock Warden, the Stasis Oubliette, Superior Creation, and Ceaseless Hunter. That means he doesn't go quite as fast as he could, but he hits real hard when he gets there. And is one of those things the redeploy?
I believe he had the redeploy in his list. I think I just forgot to type it out.
Okay, so it's on there
it's
somewhere.
probably on Mr. Worldwide.
I think it
Makes
is.
sense. We got the man, the myth, the legend, Trajan Valoris, a squad of 5 Sisters of Silence, 3x3 Sagittarum, 2x2 Alaris, interesting. A squad of 3 Wardens, that's the bodyguards. A Praetor, that's the banner boy, and he's got the dense cover banner. And you know him, you love him, it's 2x3 bikes with salvo launchers for those Darklance missile goodness. We didn't mention your round opponent is Jack Fultos. Your round 2, this is a friend of the podcast, Noah Badome. He had a great season in last year with Grey Knights on the tail end, and he has switched to the latest flavor of Imperial Hotness. What do you think about this game, Nick?
Yeah, so it was pretty scary because game 2 I matched into one of the terrors of the meta. I had not had the opportunity to play in Custodes yet. We don't really have any like local Custodes players in Portland. We have a friend who lives in Salem, Colby Hopkins. Who, I was trying to play some games with him, but didn't really work out before this tournament. So in my head, I'd pretty much done all like the math and like the theories into Emperor's Chosen, right? Which is the standard one you see. It's also what like everyone around here was super hot on. Shadowkeepers messes that up a lot though, because they subtract 1 attack from all of my models in melee. And so I wasn't really keen on just rushing him and bouncing off of him and losing the game. So what I decided was I really want to have him come to me. So I went with a little bit different secondary choices on this game. I took Purge the Vermin, which is a Necron secondary. It's Battlefield Supremacy. For those familiar with Dark Eldar, it is the exact same as Herd the Prey. So it is at the starting battle round 2, at the end of my turn. For each table quarter that does not have an enemy unit wholly within it, I get 2 victory points. And I don't think there's a cap on that each turn. So like late game, you can just pick up a ton. So I took that. I also took While We Stand. I guess it's called To the Last now. I took To the Last. My To the Lasts are the King, the Command Barge, and one of the squads of 5 Scorpex. And the last one I took was Retrieve Knockman Data, because I was like, there's no way he can stop this. And I already have 120 points of Flayed Ones tied up in this, so they're just going to go do that and threaten his backfield with some objectives secured. I ended up going first. He seemed pretty happy to go second because this was on the new Scouring, right? So the new Scouring has that tertiary that you can start scanning an objective in your command phase, and it'll complete in your, or I believe it's at the end of the movement. Yeah, you do in your movement phase, I believe. Yes. And it's completed at the end of your next command phase, or at the end of the game, whichever happens first. So I know Noah really wanted to go second, so he could get like that free 12 for going second on primary, and that free like 3 on the scan. So I played fairly defensively. I tried shooting down some like bikes with the locusts early. He kind of went up slowly. We spent like the first 2 turns not really engaging. I think he eventually engaged on like my back right flank, and I pounced on him with like a bunch of Wraiths and Scorpex and cleared out the bikes that came down. And then he sent like his whole army down the other flank towards the King. And I was like, this is perfect. This is exactly what I want. I want him to engage me. And I send in like 5 Scorpex, and they bounce off the bikes. He just goes, cool, transhuman, no rerolls. I did 2 wounds to the bike with like juiced up Scorpex. I'm like, okay, that's a bummer. And then Mr. Worldwide comes in. So Mr. Worldwide, that's the once per game global heroic. He comes in, him plus the bikes just like mess up the Scorpex, and now they are in my face because of consolidation moves. And I'm like, this is a bummer. And he continued to press that advantage. The bikes move 14, charge into my backline, started attacking the Scorpex. In my quick calculations, I realized if I used -1 to wound on the Scorpex, that they could live. I think on average he kills 3.5 to 4 at -1 to wound. But he spiked a little bit, wiped the whole squad. Like, bummer. Would love to hit back there. And he just continued to press it as just his advantage down my now weaker flank. The hard part too about his bike captain. So since he's Shadow Keepers, he has the fight last. So he can come in and make the king fight last, which is a bummer because the king has a engagement range at the start of the fight phase. If you're in engagement range of his model, you fight last. But if he charges in and hits me with a fight last, right, now he's fighting normal because charging gives you fight first, and I'm fighting last. So he still gets to hit me with his whole army first. And the bike captain also has the ability to ignore invul saves on characters, which is a bummer because the king is 3 up armor, 4 up invul, and he's coming in with like AP3, AP4. So I decided it was time for the king to get involved, and I sent him in and charged the bike captain and did like 5 wounds to him. Like, okay, bummer. And at that point, Noah just kind of ripped the king apart. I auto-exploded him. Noah, even though he didn't have the 4 Feel No Pain versus Mortals, the 6 of Feel No Pain, plus the 5 of Feel No Pain, the bike captain was enough to keep stuff alive. He had taken, I believe what it was called, the Auric, I forget the exact name of it, but it's the Custody secondary that's like kill their most expensive unit. And I was not able to kill anything with the king, so I wasn't able to subtract from that. So he just got a 15 on that, and at that point, it was like he shot super far ahead. So I still played it out. I still sent some stuff around to his backfield to try to punish him, try to take out his weaker flank back there because he didn't really. All he had was 3 Sagittarium holding his back objectives. And I found that's something maybe I should have done earlier in the game. 4 Wraiths with +1 attack, +1 to hit. They actually cleared Sagittarium fairly well. Or at least they kill 2 of the models. Now there's 4 of them to his 1. That guy can't kill 4 Wraiths. So that's something that I definitely want to leverage more into Custodies in the future, is my fast-moving OBSEC units that can get to his backside of the board. So that it kind of pulls him apart in different directions. Other than that, the Shadow Keepers definitely messed me up. I think the biggest thing about this is I was going in expecting to lose, right? I was like, Custodies are super strong, right? They're going to smash me. But the game ended up being 94 to 76. So not as big of a loss as I expected. I was able to keep well on primary. Actually deny him 12 until the very, very end each turn. So that was helpful. And I think I would do pretty well into the Emperor's Chosen. So what this kind of taught me was that there's hope in the Necron versus Custodes matchup. You actually do have a lot of pretty good profiles into them. And I think with some more just kind of practicing and thinking about, okay, what's going to go into which unit, how am I going to move my army around into them? I think that it's a winnable matchup, actually.
Yeah, I mean, Emperor's Chosen certainly does seem like the strongest one, and we can obviously see that by tournament results, but Shadow Keepers is nasty. It feels like it makes more of your matchups very, very good, and it makes more of your matchups very, very bad. I feel like Emperor's Chosen just kind of laugh at people like Thousand Suns, but I feel like if Noah matched into a competent T-Suns player, I don't know if he did. If he matched into a very skilled Thousand Suns player, I feel like this Shadow Keepers list would have some serious trouble. I mean, Custodians have a lot of wounds, but a T-Suns list, when it really wants to, can now put 20, 25 mortals, right? So the dynamic of whether or not to take Shadow Keepers or Emperor's Chosen is do you value flexibility or do you value absolutely punishing the hell out of melee armies? Because I could not imagine playing against this with my orcs. I feel like Emperor's Chosen is enough of a challenge for folks like me and you, Nick, who are all about midfield board control. This just feels, I don't know. I certainly would feel like it's impossible. I don't know if you feel like it's impossible.
But yeah, it sucked when my melee unit that consistently one-shot anything in the last game. Didn't kill a single model this game, so
Yeah.
that was yeah. The combination of just transhuman, turn off rerolls. Also, Shadow Keepers have access to -1 strength, which is kind of like transhuman, right? Because it's like -1 to wound into the right profiles, right? It makes it so hard for my army to get through to him.
Yeah. Also, just -1 attack army wide.
Yeah, because I'm not playing Novak. I have no way to give my guys +1 attack. I guess there's the Plasma Sight, which I did use to some effect, but
Necron damage is already like, I feel like its strongest suit is the mission playing, and I'm sure we'll talk about this at the end. But your damage output is already meh, and if it gets cut by 25%, then Noah can just rush right at you, and there's nothing you can really do, right?
Our strength is high strength, high AP attacks, but low number of attacks.
So if that gets cut down by 25%, it's just bad.
It's not good. Yeah, what I will say, this was definitely my favorite game of the tournament. Like, I know some people would probably be like, "Oh, playing Custodes, playing into Tau, not that fun, right?" I actually really enjoyed this game. Like I said, I did feel like it gave me some hope, because I felt like I did a lot better than I thought I would. Noah was also a great opponent, like super great guy. We've been talking a lot about this game, and just like kind of like painting and other things since we played, which is awesome. And I asked him too, because I was like, "What did you think about like how I played?" That's something that I ask, especially when I lose games. I'm like, what were you scared of? Like, was there anything you thought I like did that was really weird? Was there anything you like thought was like really good? And something that we both kind of agreed upon was when I sent the king out there, it took him like 2 shooting phases and 2 fight phases to finally bring him down. So he should have been like in the game earlier. As you can see from this picture here, I deployed him in the back because I was really scared of those missile bikes just popping him early, right? The king's not that tanky, right? He's toughness 7, so he's getting wounded pretty easily. He's getting wounded on 3s by all their missiles. But end of the day, he's a 4-up invul, so I should have just been like, "Hey, I'm already unfavored in this matchup. I'm gonna like blast my army at you. Let's see how many 4s I can roll." And that's what I did. I rolled a lot of 4s. The problem was it was on my side of the board when Noah was coming at me, and I should have been the one to initiate that engagement.
Cool. Are we ready for game 3?
Yeah, game 3, last game of the day.
How are you feeling going into round 3? Like, are you bummed about this loss, or are your spirits high? How are you feeling?
I wasn't actually like that bummed. I was happy that the game was only like a 18-point game? Is that what it was? Yeah. Yeah, it wasn't like I lost like 99 to like 12, that would have been terrible. I would have felt terrible after that. So I felt pretty good. Also, like Noah was super nice and we like chatted a bunch. So I was feeling pretty good. I'd made a friend, had a good, like fun, challenging game of Warhammer. And I was ready for my next game. I'm like, cool, let's have a good game. Let's end the day strong. Let's go win.
Awesome. So you drop down to the 1-1 bracket. You're thinking, okay, we'll get something soft now. Work my way through. No big deal. What's the worst that could happen? Give me some Space Marines or something. Oop, no, it's Tau. Sorry. But as we know, you went 4-1 and you've already seen the 1. So excited to hear about how to take on some Tau. Lukas, you want to walk us through this beautiful Tau list?
Sure. So for this Tau list, we have a Tau Empire battalion and patrol, starting with 8 command points. I've kind of lumped it all in here in one gigantic mass, so it's not delineated by faction or detachment. Sorry. The first HQ, he has 4 HQs, is a Cadre Fireblade with Ortu's Lantern and Through Boldness Victory, and 2 shield drones. He has a Cold Star Commander with full hit and wound rerolls. I think that's Precision of the Hunter, high output burst cannon, a missile pod, a Nova Surge plasma rifle, which just is a plasma rifle that ignores invulns. I think it's also like AP5 or something ridiculous. 2 plasma rifles, the solid image projecting unit, which I think it helps him be more defensive. It converts the first damage of phase to 0 and gives him a -1 damage or something like that. 2 shield drones. So this is a Cold Star Commander with a ton of stuff. He's got an Ethereal with the Humble Stave, so 2 chance on a 2-up, and a Gun Drone. He's got Dank Strider, or Dark Strider, as he is officially called, but Dank Strider's cooler, so there we go. He's got 50 Strike Fire Warriors, so these are not the Breachers. These are just the homies with the guns, the long rifles. He's got 2x3 Crisis Suits with missile pods, plasma rifles, and 5 drones per squad. He's got 3 missile broadsides with SMS, of course. 6 drones in the squad, and he's got 3 Devilfish with SMS. So it sounds like discount Breacher Rush plus a bunch of Crisis Suits plus a bunch of broadsides. So an interesting take on Tau, with a much stronger emphasis on Fire Warriors. How did this game go, Nick?
Yeah, so we played on Conversion, which is one of the new corner missions. So it's the same exact deployment as old Sweep and Clear. This one's a little interesting where it's the tertiary is hold one of the middle objectives for 2 VP at the end of your turn, or hold your opponents for 4 VP at the end of your turn. And you also lose a VP if you don't hold your own, and you can't go below 0. And I also think you don't get your CP every turn if your Warlord is dead. The Warlord has to be on the battlefield or in a transport. This mission's pretty chill, though. I don't know. It didn't it's pretty easy to get an objective and pretty hard to lose your objective. So I just talked to Noah about Tau because I was like, yeah, I felt pretty good into this Custodes matchup, but if I play Tau, I don't know, that one seems really hard. And he's like, yeah, I think your list is a tough time. He's like, I just put your whole army on the line and pregame move and hope you go first. And I'm like, okay. So when I get to the board has the corners, right? And instead of a terrain feature at the front of the DZ, there's this giant hill in the middle of the DZ, maybe 8 inches back. And the annoying thing is it's not a ruin. It's not breachable. I have to walk over it, which for the Wraiths is fine because the Wraiths ignore terrain as they move through it. They have Wraith form, they ignore terrain and models in the movement in the charge phase. But the Scorpex are infantry that do not have that. So they'd have to start behind it and go up and over. So I was like, I'm not doing any of that. I'm not starting minus 20 inches away from the Tau army. So I pretty much put my whole army on the line. I put the king behind the wall because he's got to fly. But I put the whole army on the line. And I'm like, all right, dude, I'm going to go first. I didn't go first, but I still pregame my whole army at him. And then he goes, okay. And he just starts rolling dice. This guy, obviously, his list isn't the super killy, crazy Tau list. And he has a bunch of missiles. So missiles, luckily, aren't plasma. Plasma is AP3 damage 3, which is one-shots, Scorpex, and Wraiths. But it is a bunch of strength 7 minus 2/2. So it's putting, the Wraiths on their invul. It's a lot of 2 damage. It's wounding on 3s. It's putting the Scorpex on 5 up armor. There is a lot of cover around, so I am putting them in cover, luckily. And I think he did only have the ignore cover on the Crisis Suits. But this guy still goes first and kills 10 Wraiths turn 1. And 2 Scorpex. Just rolling dice. Crazy. And he killed 10 Wraiths out of 2 squads because some of them reanimated. So I had 1 squad that was full. I think he wiped out a squad and I had 1 squad on 2. And a Scorpex squad with a hurt guy and another guy missing. Yeah, another squad missing a model. So I'm luckily, okay, he only wipes out one squad. So my Technomancer is able to reanimate a Wraith from one squad and reanimate the Scorpex from another squad because you can do it twice for a CP. And he has his Devilfish pretty close to me. So I'm going to use those Devilfish as free movement. So I start charging the Wraiths at the Devilfish and the Scorpex at the Devilfish. And his broadsides and Crisis Suits are way over there. They're just acing me from downtown. And I'm not, I can't get a charge on them this turn. I also decide not to hide the king. I'm if my whole army's exposed, he has to choose whether to shoot the king or shoot my whole army. So I just blast the king out there immediately, and I start farming Code of Combat points. So I think it's important to actually, or not Code of Combat, but kill points. So I think it's important to talk about my secondaries in this mission. I took Stranglehold, because it's a 5 objective mission, and I want him to have to come take the middle objective, because that's where my army wants to hang out. I took R&D. I figured this was an easy 8, and if I ace him pretty hard, it's maybe a 12. But I was hey, 8 points for little investment seems pretty good. And the last one I took was No Prisoners, because I think his list actually gives up 15 No Prisoners. So with all the drones and the 50 Fire Warriors as well. And the Crisis Suits and Broadsides being infantry as well. So I thought about code, but I was I don't want to play this little mini game of I need to barely leave something alive and then finish it off. I'm if I hit something, I want to kill it. I'm not going to try to mess around with Tau. And so I get into him pretty well. The Wraiths start just hopping from Devilfish, goes to his next turn, he kills some more stuff. Goes to my turn, my Wraiths are now in his Crisis Suits. I kill a Crisis Suit squad. Turn 3, my Wraiths are in his objective, killing his characters and steal his objective, which is great for me. And at this point, the dude's broadsides are way down here in like the bottom corner, and he's like, oh man, I need to go protect my home field objective. And he starts turning around to do that, and that's when the broadsides come face to face with the Scorpex and the King, and they're like, nope, you ain't going over there, and they killed him. So at that point, it's like all he had left was like crisis suits, like 20 fire warriors, like and like the Cold Star commander that come back to his home field objective and clear my wraiths that are there. But then my Scorpex, I have another squad of healthy Scorpex coming in from the top flank, the hurt squad's Scorpex, and the King coming in from the bottom, and I just pin him into his DZ, and he concedes. He's like, all right, good game, you got me. So it's something I learned in this game. So Tau do have the ability to shoot into combat with their suits, which is very annoying, because back in the day, I used to be able to tag them, and then they couldn't shoot. But now they can. However, the good thing about that is they're forced to shoot the squad they're locked in combat with. So you can kind of like, my plan was, here's a Wraith squad inside of this squad of Crisis. You know, here's a Scorpex fighting the broadsides. Here's like some other Wraiths over here. So like these Crisis have to shoot these Wraiths, and they can't like help contribute to shooting another unit. Right? He gets to like pick apart my units a little bit at a time instead of like blasting fire, like focus firing one down, which is great for Necrons, right? Like because we reanimate and all that. The other thing about the shooting into combat is it works just like vehicles, so you get -1 to hit if it's a heavy weapon, and that's like all broadsides have. And since he's Tau Sept, he doesn't have the marker lights. I didn't know if you could fire a marker light in combat or not, and he didn't either. He wasn't like super familiar with his rules, and I'm not super familiar with Tau rules yet. Like I haven't like sat down and read the entire codex yet. So there are a couple times I'm like, can you shoot a marker light in combat? He's like, I don't think so, and then just like shot with -1 to hit. I'm like, okay, like so maybe I'll find out later that this like doesn't actually work out super well. But I did have like 3 Scorpex just like sitting in combat with the broadsides for like 2 turns, and every turn he'd shoot, I'm like, cool, -1 to wound, -1 to wound, and he like kills like 1, and then Technomancer brings it back. So we did that for a while, and that felt great. Yeah, I do not know how well I would do into an optimized Tau list. I won this game like 97 to 22, which from his initial like opening salvo, I thought this game was going to be like, you know, a tough game for me. But as soon as I hit his lines, he just crumpled. I think into a better Tau player, Necrons would have a hard time. Into a better Tau list too, because like I know a lot of the more populists are running the ability to, they're running the commander that can tell the crisis squads to fall back and shoot, so touching them doesn't actually help. But I do think that touching broadsides is still actually the call, because they're -1 to hit now, and they can only shoot the thing they're in combat with, because they have no way to fall back and shoot as far as I know.
Yeah, it's the real reason why the Cold Star commander, as amazing as he is worse than the Crisis commander is. I mean, even if the Crisis commander was just ignore hit mods, he would be better than the Cold Star, but he also lets you fall back and shoot, which is just dumb. So yeah, I think your opponent here, I don't remember his name, but would have been definitely better served by taking at least 1 more commander, and it probably would have been a Crisis commander optimally. Enforcer commanders are also excellent. People are saying they're the worst, but I mean, have you tried to kill a 1-up armor, 5-up feel no pain, 4-up invul, -1 damage, T6 dude with shield drones? No, you haven't. And that guy just, I mean, and he gives out the Crisis suits obsec. Like, this guy is incredible. The suits, the commanders of all kinds are incredible.
Yeah.
But to get back to the point, yeah. Tagging suits when your opponent doesn't have a Crisis commander is a great way to force the Tau player to shoot at certain things. Just be aware that, just like vehicles, the Crisis can declare certain weapons into the tagging squad and other weapons out. I'm pretty sure they can anyway. Just like vehicles can. So if you tag them with a small crappy squad, they will flamer you and then shoot their plasma into your vehicle. So just be aware that that's a thing that can happen.
Yeah. So I do think though that tagging the broadsides is still very useful. Something that didn't feel great in this matchup, the Locus Heavy Destroyers, like once they're great to the Devilfish, because the Devilfish are just, you know, big dumb vehicles with no invul and a -4 3v3 damage gun once to shoot that. But like I didn't want to one-shot the Devilfish because I wanted to use them as free movement for my charging, right? like in the charge phase, charge with the Wraiths. Oh, I rolled an 11. I'm going to go over your model because I can pass through it. Now I'm like way over here in like your top flank, and that helped me out. Into like broadsides and crisis, you might be like, oh yeah, those guys have 8 wounds. Like those guys have 5 wounds. Like big damage weapons are really good into them. But you have to kill like the 6 or 7 drones just running around with them first. And the shield drones have a 4 pinball, so they're just like coin flipping all the time. So I found in melee the Scorpix and Wraiths were pretty good because they're like a decent number of attacks that are wounding on like 3s. And all right, cool. They're all 2 damage. Like make those coin flips on the shield drones. I'll kill them and then start getting into your crisis. So that's pretty helpful.
Cool. Good stuff. It seems like Necrons are pretty like uniquely situated to really benefit from this splitting up, right? Because you've got those reanimations, you've got the Technomancer, that he's not doing any damage. Do you think that's something that you would be able to leverage continually in if you're playing this into a more optimized list? Like even if they're not taking all the penalties, just the threat saturation comboed with the all this reanimating, because like they're fundamentally a pretty limited number of activations army, right? They have like 3 or 4 hammer units that can put out, and if they're not finishing stuff off, you're getting a lot back. Do you think that'll still hold relevancy, or do you think you'll just get tabled?
I think a good Tau player will focus down 1 unit at a time. Like they'll know that that's what to do. And I mean, this is what this guy did. That's why I tied him up in combat, so he could only shoot 1 unit at one thing. But like he cleared that Wraith squad and then went to the next Wraith squad.
Gotcha.
And then like the Scorpix, he was like, hey, there's a Scorpix squad. I'm going to clear that Scorpix squad and then start shooting the next Scorpix squad. So yeah, I don't think it's anything that like, I think it's really just up to me. It's like how I'm choosing to play the game. Like, hey, you shoot, like this unit gets to shoot this unit. This unit gets to shoot this unit. But I think it's pretty obvious from the Tau player, like delete a unit, then go delete the next unit, then go delete the next. Don't like leave 1 alive in each squad.
Yeah.
So
yeah, threat overload lists have a terrible time in a Tau. I mean, everyone's talking about how they can just the Tau has unparalleled ability to just kill everything that you put in front of them, right? Threat overload works against a lot of lists, and a lot of people can't kill everything you put in front of them. But Tau will either kill or mitigate your clapback on the next turn, and that's just brutal. I mean, a more optimal list would obviously have like Crude Hounds and Crude to move block, so they get to just blow up half your army and then move block it for 60 points, and then kill the other half the next turn. So yeah, I mean, I feel like I don't know if you agree, Nick, but I feel like this kind of list is this kind of your Necron list is better suited to deal with Custodies than Tau. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like I have much more of a game in the Custodies. In the Tau, I figured like my best plan is basically do what I did that game, start everything on the line, pre-game move the Wraiths, get the Wraiths in first wave. They're the tankiest thing because they have a 4 pinball, right? Those Scorpex are advancing, right? So they go 9 plus d6. Hopefully the guy doesn't kill all my Wraiths, right? Or maybe he does, but that's all he does. And then my wave 2, my Scorpex come in and they get to hit hard with the king. And that's like my best strategy so far. Obviously I need to test it, but that's what I'm going to do next time I play Tau. We'll see what happens. And I think if they go first, because my whole army's there on the line, they'll kill me. But it's better than me cowering behind cover and just losing the game, slowly.
Sounds good. Good words of advice there. Okay, so you go home, you're 2-1, feeling pretty solid. Did you guys get matchups the night before?
We did not. I did not know who I was playing till the next
So
time.
you roll in day 2, having scarfed hopefully some kind of breakfast down your face, and you're running into Death Watch. Oh, is this Oliver?
Oliver Byler.
Oh, love Oliver. Great guy.
Great guy.
Lucas, you want? Or I guess you did last one. I'll run us through what's going on here. He's changed his list a little bit lately. All right, he's got so he's playing Death Watch. He's got a patrol, another patrol, and an auxiliary support detachment. And it's a good list if there's an auxiliary support detachment in it. So let's hear what he's got. He's got a Calidus Assassin. But wait, there's more. There's also an Eversor Assassin. And then we're not done with the random jank characters that aren't actually Death Watch. We've got Ephriel Stern and Kaiganil. Is that the Custodies ones?
That's
the sister and the Harlequin.
The sister and the Harlequin. Okay. I didn't know that Deathwatch could take those. Cool. I assume they're the
There's
auxiliary
the
support
Imperium keyword.
detachment.
They can do whatever they want.
Fair
Imperial
enough.
privilege. Let's get it.
All right, so he's got them. And then we got moving on. He's got his patented captains on bike. He's got 2 of them here, both with combi meltas and power fists. And then one of them has the Beacon Angelus, Refuse to Die, and it's not the Beasttide Mantle. The Mantle of what now?
Adamantine Mantle.
The Adamantine Mantle. All right, I know a lot about Space Marines. This was a great decision on my part. He's not done with bike characters, though. His 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th character in the list is a Primaris Chaplain on bike with Exhortation of Rage, Canticle of Hate, Benediction of Fury, and Wise Orator. Been there, done that. And then we bring on the actual meat of the army, 3 10-man full melee Proteus kill teams, 5 Assault Centurions. That's right, it's still 8th edition. I hope y'all are looking forward to 2020. I hear it's going to be a great year. They've all got flamers, and then he's got 2x3 Eliminators. I imagine double rifle and carbine on those.
Las Fusils, actually.
Triple Las Fusils.
Well, no, double Las Fusil carbine.
Double Las Fusil carbine. All right, legend status unlocked. So, what the heck is going on here?
Yeah. So this was Marines with a little bit of a twist in the fact that he just brought 4 extra characters. The Assassins and, Pharaoh, Stern, and Kaiganel. So I play against Marines a lot with Necrons. My good buddy that I play against all the time, Max Schwartzer, loves Marines. And we played mini games into his White Scars and more recently into his Black Templars. So I have this matchup pretty standardized in my mind, although since I never played against Deathwatch, that plus their weird splitting of the melee of the Proteus kill teams and these 4 characters going around kind of made me okay, don't really know how this matchup's. I'm a little confused about what might happen. So I went with my standard though of Stranglehold and Retrieve Knockman Data. These seem pretty safe. He does not have the bodies to screen Retrieve Knockman Data. This is a very elite list. And Stranglehold, we were playing on secure precious artifacts, which is the new priorities. So it's another 5 objective mission. Stranglehold seems really good here. I normally take Code of Combat into Marines because it's just a lot of 5 model squads walking around that are T4 2 wounds, which is what my army loves killing and what my nobles love killing. But I actually opted for Assassinate this time because he had 7 characters. So I was I think I'm going to be getting that one. He, to his credit, also took Assassinate because I have 4 characters. So I was very excited for character duels to be happening. Stranglehold and a Deathwatch one called Purge the Xenos, which is basically just for every unit of mine he kills, he gets a point. So we did the, initial dance with the artifacts and everything. He took Defender and I took Attacker. I was a little bummed. I wanted to move Objective second. I like moving the 2. I know this is something Lucas has talked about too, where if your opponent is the attacker and moves their home field objective back to be safer first, you then take the 2 midfield objectives and move them towards you, and you pretty much win the game instantly, which is very funny. But that didn't happen. He made me move the first objective, so I moved his objective, I believe, to be closer to mine. We pretty much just moved each other's objectives closer towards each other, so the game just became really bunched up, which was super fun.
Wait a second, Nick. Did you just talk about how you have to move one of the 2 midfield objectives going first to prevent your opponent from grabbing both of them, and then immediately not grab one of the midfield objectives?
No, I grabbed one on his side of the board.
Oh,
the one outside
gotcha.
of his DZ.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm saying if you take the one in your DZ and move it back, that's really bad. Yeah.
I was thinking you could have moved his home field objective, and it would have had all of the same downsides. But okay, his side midfield makes sense.
So I made his one outside of his DZ not so safe, I believe. Yeah. It kind of became a bit of a mess, and we'll see in the picture here. We kind of looked at it. We're this is an interesting board, and then we we got to play in there. And I put the king behind that building there. Deployed the king fairly safely. Put the wraiths and the scorpeks pretty close towards the front. Those scorpeks there behind the building actually started in the building, but he ended up going first, so I pregame moved them out of the building so he couldn't shoot them. Yeah, so he ended up going first. He pulled off this interesting play with the Beacon and Jealous. That's the once per game pull a unit and re-deep strike them next to the biker captain. And he also turned his Centurions, his assault Centurions, those are the ones that got launched with the Beacon and Jealous, into Blood Angels. So they got a +1 to charge. So he was just going for an 8-inch charge out of deep strike. And he marked the Wraiths as his favored enemy, which gives his whole army, I think, reroll 1s versus them. Or at least like fast attack is what it is, I believe. Yeah. Which is just the Wraiths and the Scarabs in my list. So he got reroll 1s to wound versus them. So he just, starts shooting me pretty hard. He ends up killing like 2 Wraiths from the squad he's not trying to charge and 1 from the squad he is trying to charge. And then he sends the Centurions into them and absolutely deletes them because these guys are still like strength 12, AP4, flat 3. And I only had 3 Wraiths. So.
And they're +1 to wound right now, right?
Well, +1 to wound right now because they're Blood Angels. So yes, he did make the charge out of deep strike. It was an 8. And he also he split up his kill teams. I think all of them into he had combat squatted all of them except for one squad which had the Terminators in it. He kept that as like one big brick of 10. So one of the kill teams was a biker squad that comes around the corner to charge my Scorpex. I pop -1 to wound, Whirling Onslaught. He does 1 damage, and I just slap him back. So at this point, we're fighting in it's that like gray building in the top left, and the king just comes around with the Scorpex, and all of his characters are lined up there, and I just like go to town and don't kill everything, but then he hits me back with the characters. There's a very funny moment where they come in, their fight lasted, so the king goes first, fails to kill his bike chaplain. Bike chaplain hits the king, kills a Menhir, and a Menhir was killed in the shooting phase, so now it's just the king. Then Power Fist Captain comes in, bonk, hits the king. All right, I got 5 attacks, 5 hits, 5 wounds. Okay, 5 4-ups. I fail all of them. King just takes 10 damage out of nowhere. I'm like, this is a bit of a problem. But the rest of the board is not a problem. My Wraiths took the mid board pretty early and then started doing fallback and charge shenanigans to like attack his objective in the bottom right and start attacking his eliminators, which are in the buildings. My Scorpex are blasting up the mid board as well. I had my turn 2. I had a squad of 5 Scorpex charge the 10-man kill team, and I juiced them up with the Plasma Sight, as well as Hungry Void, and I killed the entire squad of 10 bottles with the 5 Scorpex. By quite a lot, actually. And then I had the king fight on full bracket for a CP, and he finishes off the characters that are, daring to strike at him. So this is like turn 2. I kill like all of his characters, most of his infantry. Pretty much all he's got left is like some Vanguard veterans and tactical Marines in the bottom right, and like 6 eliminators. And he decides, all right, game's over. That's it. So it was pretty wild. He did exactly what I wanted to do, which is come right at my army. And I was able to make combat turn 1 into key units like the Centurions and his characters, and then turn 2 into like his skill team. So yeah.
Marines are just not durable into these kind of profiles. Like we talk all the time about how hard Hive Guard crap on Marines, but like imagine that, but there's like 6 units of Hive Guard and they all move really fast and they're all like okay with standing in the open because they're pretty tanky and have more attacks than Hive Guard and just wound 1 worse. That's basically the math of what's happening here. Like Marines are just not durable in general anymore, and especially when you're packing so many AP-3, AP-4 multi-damage attacks that are hitting on 2s, rolling 1s, full rolls to wound from the king, and like his army just goes away.
They're also a bunch of flat damage. Like Marine players playing into Hive Guard get to pray that I roll a bunch of 1s on damage, and it happens from time to time. You have no such luck into Scorpex. It's just picking up models.
Yeah, it's like, okay, my paired blade guys. Okay, I killed 8 guys. Here comes the other weapons.
I love that Oliver is such a fan of his assassins and this Harlequin that he refused that like this should be Army of Renown. The only reason it's not is because of his silly extra characters, and I love the commitment to the bit. Yep. That's good stuff. Okay.
Yeah, Oliver's a Chad for sure.
Yeah, his assassins look really cool. Some very cool assassin models.
Yeah,
I like them.
Man, I wish assassins are going to get a glow up at some point this edition, and we're all going to be scared.
scared of, yeah.
When I played Oliver, he put all 3 Eversors into a Hive Tyrant, and they just sat in combat until the Hive Tyrant slowly killed them.
Bruh.
They couldn't even bracket the thing, and I'm like, wow, these guys, they need a bit of a facelift. So anyway, looks good. We can, cool. So you walk through them, you kill all the stuff. Any unexpected takeaways here, Nick?
Trying to think. I mean, the biggest thing is this matchup was just pretty run of the mill. Like I play into Marines a lot of the time with Necrons. I think this really kind of solidified that when Necrons and Marines first came out, the Marine book was like they're the first 2 9th edition books. The Marine book was stronger, right? Not a ton stronger, right? But it felt stronger. It felt like I kind of had to like, play pretty like somewhat hard to win the games or like try some kind of like, riskier plays. But Marines have received like 3 series of nerfs and Necrons have received like 2 buffs. So it's at a point where I'm pretty sure this matchup is very Necron favored, especially my list being a lot of, high AP 2 or 3 damage weapons. So that was interesting for me because for a while people have always been like, Necrons, C tier army, and it's like, well, I think they're like better than Marines now. Like the one thing that might be a close matchup is Templars because Templars have the mini transhuman and 5-up invul. But yeah,
they can also bash you in melee, unlike most Marine builds, which cannot.
They also usually have an apothecary for army wide 6 of Feel No Pain, which makes those 2 damage weapons. Sometimes it takes 2 to kill one guy. But yeah, and the thing is, so it's like I regularly beat Black Templars playing Necrons, and so this was kind of just like, holy cow! Like my army did what it wanted to do. Like Oliver ran at me, he got within 8 inches, or he got within 10 inches of the king. King mid combat turn 1, just army got to do exactly what it wanted to do, and I killed so much so fast.
Beautiful.
Wild. Something interesting in this game. I don't know if this is it seems like the right time to talk about this. There's an interesting thing about the plasma site that I've been telling Lucas about, and I didn't talk about this at the beginning because I wanted to wait till this game. So the plasma site, I remember I mentioned that it at the beginning of either your charge phase or either player's fight phases, you may try to inject your Scorpex, and if you roll a 1, it kills a model. So those Scorpex down there in the bottom right, on my turn 1, I move them out to the front of that objective, or no, bottom left. Sorry, the Scorpex in the bottom left. I move them to the objective, and to get to the mid board, I mean, I move 9, but he has his like 10 man all the way on like the outer edge of that objective in the mid board. So it would have been like a 7-inch charge. 7-inch charge with a free reroll for my Technomancer. Not low odds, but somewhat failable. Would have really sucked to fail that charge. So I used the plasma site in his fight phase, injected the Scorpex, and killed one of them. It gets to my command phase. My Technomancer revives a Scorpec. 2 inches further ahead, it's like a 2-inch base. It just gained 4 inches of movement. Now it turns the 7-inch charge into like a 3-inch charge. And don't know if that won me the game, but it was a kind of funny trick that I've been trying to pull off all tournament, and it worked out pretty well there. So
yeah, you can think of it kind of like the whole adage from about a year ago where you're not supposed to kill one model out of a Marine squad because it's going to make their charge easier. Mm-hmm. Think of it like that, but you have no agency over it. It's just a 1 in 6 that you get randomly boned by like 5 inches of movement. It's absolutely hilarious.
And you do it your fight phase, your opponent's fight phase. So you get 2 shots at it before your turn 2 even, right?
Yeah, so it's either player's fight phase or your charge phase.
Can you do it in both your charge phase and your fight phase?
I believe that it's the unit can only be targeted by this ability once a turn.
Oh, it's the AdMech thing where you can't have the same named ability affecting you twice. But I guess you could try to kill a model.
Oh, gotcha. Sure. Okay. That's what I'm saying. Like, it might kill a model. But if that's possible and you can do it your charge phase, your fight phase, your opponent's fight phase, by turn 2, that's a 50-50 to have gotten it, basically.
That's so wild.
Yeah. So I'll look into that more. But
for sure.
Basically, yeah, if it gets to my opponent's fight phase and that Scorpex squad isn't in danger, and like I'm not resurrecting anything else next turn, you bet I'm injecting them and trying to kill one.
For sure. Oh man. And then but also like you have 2 plasma sites. You're doing this on 2 different squads.
Yep.
Amazing. Okay, great tech for Necron
So people ask me,
players.
like, what's your threat range on the Scorpex? I'm like, well, they could move 10, but also they could get 4 inches of movement for free with this. So it's like, explaining that is pretty weird.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I think if you're gonna try to intentionally do the silliness, you should explain that to your opponent as early as possible.
Yes.
But yeah, no, it's kind of awkward to measure when you're like, well, yeah, their threat range is 18 or 20, yeah, 20, but or 21, I guess. But yeah, you know,
The
cool.
sixth of the time, it's 30. Yeah.
Very
Indeed.
funny.
All right,
Yeah,
cool.
I love little movement tricks like that.
Well, thanks for the heads up, Fred. Assault Centurions would have also prevented the Army of Renown. I don't know how Death Watch works. Cool. So, Oliver, keep playing what you're doing. It's really cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
super secret
Great
tech
game.
unlocked.
Great Oliver.
If you dropped off earlier Necron players, you're missing out. You got to listen to the whole thing. All right. So, you're 3-1. Time for round 5. You're done with one Byler and you're on to the next. You're running into Eleanor and her Dark Eldar, who have been recently somewhat defanged. So let's see how. I mean, we know how this shakes out. You go 4-1, but let's see what she's got in store. Lucas, the list.
Sure. So this is a real space raid using Cabal of the Black Heart, the Prophets of Flesh, and a custom witch cult with precise killers and test of skill. Test of skill is +1 to wound vehicles and monsters, and precise killers isn't seen very much. It's blade artists on 5s, which is pretty cool. And I'll kind of talk through some cool tech when we get further down in the list of why that's so awesome. It starts with 9 CP after relics and warlord traits and such. All right, she has a Master Archon with Ancient Evil and the Rid of the Living Muse, which turns the Archon into a Lieutenant. So that's a cool, nice little Captain Lieutenant reroll bot. She has a Master Homunculus with the Vexator Mask. So this is a second fight last that happens at 3-inch range. So lots of fight lasting happening here. She has a Master Succubus with Quicksilver Fighter. I think that's +2 attacks. I'm not 100% sure. I'm pretty certain it is. And then the Triptych Whip, which we all know and love. She's got 10 Amoxites, which are the upgraded racks. She's got 10 Blood Brides. So this is the first instance where Precise Killers is awesome. Blood Brides are always weapon skill 2. And they, instead of having an extra AP on Blade Artists, they're AP4. So on 5s and 6s to wound, they're AP4. Which is super cool.
Mm-hmm.
So these ladies are also +1 wound vehicles and monsters. So they go from doing nothing to vehicles and monsters to like killing a toughness 7 vehicle 100% of the time, which is super sick. So they're pretty awesome. And they have the Succubus has Adrenalite, so +1 attack on the charge. The Blood Brides have +1 strength, which is pretty standard. 2x5 warriors with a blaster in each squad. 2x5 basic racks for scoring. Squad of 4 grotesques. 2x5 Incubi, 2x5 Helions with Adrenalite, 2x1 Kronos with the Lieutenant Aura and the Blasty Gun, 3 Raiders with Chain Snare. Oh no, I forgot about her squad of 6, what are they called? Reaver Jet Bikes. She had a squad of 6 Reaver Jet Bikes with, I think it was Adrenalite as well for +1 attack on the charge. 3 Raiders with Chain Snares and Grizzlies, and then 2 Venoms. So just kind of like her own cool take on Drukhari good stuff.
Yeah.
How'd this game go, Nick?
Yeah, I think the Reavers also had a blaster or 2 in there as well for some added punch. So this game was really, really fun. I've played against Dark Eldar quite a few times. We have a buddy, Jeremiah Bergdale, who loves elves of all varieties, and he has been playing Dark Eldar for the past year. So I played a bunch of scrimmage games into him and have continually been getting just destroyed. There's often like a tipping point turn 3 where it's like, oh wait, he has like 10 more units than me, and then I lose. But my idea kind of going into my list, like with the whole trading wars, like bringing these smaller squads of Wraiths, right? Like that smaller Scorpex squad. I think it paid off very well here. We did end up playing a lot of a trading game throughout this game, and it was really nice when she came in and one-shot something, and she wasn't one-shotting like a 175-point squad with a 90-point squad. She was only one-shotting like an 140-point squad. So that was kind of nice. We played on, what was it? Death and Zeal, which is the new sweep and clear. So this mission is very fun, in my opinion. compared to old Sweep and Clear. So old Sweep and Clear had that mission secondary, which was hold the middle at the end of your turn, get 3 VP, or your opponent's objective, I believe. And if you held both, you got 5. But it was basically, can you hold the middle and your opponent can't take it? You win. This one is now the new tertiary. It is, you get 2 VP a turn if you either hold one objective you didn't hold last turn, / hold all objectives, or kill an enemy unit that was holding an objective marker at the start of your turn. And you get 3 if you do both. So really it's go find an objective that you don't have with an enemy unit on it, kill them, take it, 3 VP. So it turns the game into a lot of this like, hey, you have a weak flank over here. I'm going to go kill that, take it back, get 3 VP. Or you've left the middle weak. I'm going to go take the middle, 3 VP. So the game is a lot less, this mission is a lot less about holding the middle now. You can win by attacking the flanks. So I'll get into how this went. So she goes first, and I expected her, because she took Stranglehold, Retrieve Necron Data, and no prisoners. I took Stranglehold, Retrieve Necron Data, and as you can see here, there's a ton of MSU, so I took Code of Combat. I was like, this seems very easy. Code of Combat mission. So since she'd taken Stranglehold and went first, I expected her to throw something like, like a little trash unit in the middle. Like 5 Helions or something like that, or maybe even 5 racks. Something to be like, hey, here's my Stranglehold. Come into the middle, and we're going to play this little back and forth game. She goes first and throws a ton of stuff into the middle. There is the Hamoxites screened by the Helions, followed up by the what is it? The Homunculus. This was really cool because she basically made this wall that was like, if you charge the Helions, then I'll Vexator Mask you. And then on either side, 2 Venoms in dense cover, so like really -1 to hit, -2 to hit, with the Cobblites in them. And I'm like, oh, holy cow, this is a lot turn 1. And then she sends some like Reavers over to the side to R&D, which we actually looked it up. I believe Bikers can R&D now.
Bikers can indeed R&D.
Yeah, so she does that, gets her first R&D. I'm like, cool. So I'm like, okay, there's a lot of questions I have to answer here now. There's 6 Reavers over on the top, and there is a lot in the middle. So the 6 Reavers, I actually pulled off my little Canoptech Plasmacite trick in her fight phase to kill a Scorpec and resurrect it. And then they ran 9 over there and had an easy like 4-inch charge instead of their, 7-inch charge. And cleared that objective easily. Now the middle, I basically was like, she just threw a lot in the middle. I don't want to do this like, dance around, mess around sort of thing. I'm just going to like send my whole army to the middle of the board. That sounds fun. So I send in 8 Wraiths, I send in 9 Scorpex, I send in the King, I send in the Barge, and I leave like 2 Locust Heavies and the Scarabs holding my back objective. And the Immortals are somewhere in the corner, doing their R&D shenanigans. And the bottom right objective, I send 4 Wraiths over to, and I set them like the very, very corner. So basically, if she wants to like come take that objective from me, she has to like get kind of wildly out of position. And yeah, I clear the middle out fairly well. I kill the Venoms, I kill the Cobblites, I kill the Helions, I get a lot of Code of Combat points. And the Wraiths charge the Hamoxites. My first squad got this really big charge, so I went for a kind of greedy play here where I used the movement to go onto her home field objective and try to put her on a 0. Talk about that at the end of the fight phase. And then my other squad's going to the Hamoxites. So if you don't know Hamoxites are actually like really tanky because they have this rule where they prevent the first source of damage, or they ignore the first source of damage in each phase. So they basically get like a free pass in the shooting and the fight phase. They're also toughness 5 near the Homunculus, and she was playing Prophets of Flesh, which has actual transhuman if you are less than strength 8, which my Wraiths are. They're strength 6, -2.
They also bump their invuln by 1, Hamoxites.
Oh, yeah. So they're 5 up invuln. Yeah, so these guys were actually really tanky. So I sent the Wraiths in. I also like used the Scorpex to finish off some of the Cabalites in melee, like a squad of 5, and then I consolidated into the Hamoxites to be like, yeah, I'm gonna like block your movement by basing you. And then she was like, cool, I'm gonna reroll wounds. And I was like, oh yeah, I can't -1 to wound because you're poisoned. And she just kills 3 Scorpex with like 6 Hamoxites. And I was like, oh, this is not good. I luckily 1 did come back because I got to roll 9 dice for reanimation, so 1 got back. But I'm like, my squad of 5 just got knocked into 3 for free. That was dumb. That was very dumb. And then her turn, and then she steals the objective because of this, because she gets more models on there. And I'm like, no, I didn't put her on a 0. My dumb aggro play didn't pay off. And then it goes to her turn, and her turn 2, She hits me back extremely hard. This is the advanced and charge turn. And I'm still flabbergasted by how fast Dark Eldar can move. She goes, all right, I'm going to advance the Archon out of the Raider. I roll a 5. Archon's going 16 or whatever. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that's... Uh-oh. So she sends the Archon and 5 Incubi over to the Scorpex, the 5 Scorpex on the top objective. And she doesn't really send anything to take the middle. I think she's accepted that I own the middle now. She's like, okay, my Moxites will mess around there for a little bit and, roadblock you. But my Wraiths that are on our home field objective, she's like, thanks for the free charge, dummy, and charges Grotesques in there. And she doesn't come contest my bottom right objective because I think she recognized that she would have gotten kind of wildly out of position to have to contest that. So the Grotesques with reroll wounds easily take her home base objective back. The Incubi come in to the Scorpex and them plus the Archon, they make them fight last. So I'm like, okay, -1 to wound. The Incubi should kill 3. She rolls 7 6s to wound, which are ep4 3 damage. Just one-shots the squad. And I'm like, bummer. So it gets to my turn 2. I very much own the middle of the board. I very much own the middle of the board, but she is threatening these flanks. And so this is kind of where the game starts to get really interesting because I have to decide, how do I split my forces up in such a way that I answer the threats to my top here and clear this middle out. So I take a turn to kind of clear out the middle, solidify my hold over the middle. And I think I bring the Wraiths from the bottom objective. Yeah, this was, you can go back to that picture if you want to for our listeners. So this was before I cleared the middle. This was my turn 1. That was everything that was there. So pretty crazy melee going there. So these objectives are sticky, which is pretty nice. So my Wraiths that are in the bottom right, I bring them up to the middle so they can kind of have a bit better of a launching off point. Because they move 13, they can go pretty fast. And I clear the middle, I take the middle back, but I don't really start pressuring the flanks quite so much. And then she starts hitting my flanks harder. She goes now to this weaker flank here with the Succubus, with the Dark Eldar, with the Raider full of Blood Brides, with some Racks, with some Grotesques, and they start coming on down to this objective. And that's when I go, okay, she's sending a lot here, and all she's got in the top left are the Incubi and the Archon. And those guys don't make any moves, because as you can see here, they're hiding behind that wall. So there's I guess, for our listeners, there's a ruin kind of in the top left of the board, and there's a forest right in front of it. So the Incubi and the Archon are hiding right behind that wall there, and they don't want to come out to the middle because they have to walk through that forest. And the only thing they could get around to the back, but right back there was the king, and the only thing they could charge into was his fight last, so they didn't really want to charge into that. I think. I don't know. So she kind of just hung out there. So I sent a minimal force over to deal with that. I deep strike the Hexmark in, the Hexmark plus the Immortals who have been running up the board, clear the Incubi, and the king comes around the corner, charges a Raider, kills the Raider. So now it's here comes the king around the corner to kill this Archon. My Hexmark makes a charge out of deep strike onto a Kronos, steals the objective back. And in the bottom, I send all my forces. I send all my Scorpex and all my Wraiths over to deal with the big chunk of our army in the bottom. And I take that objective back. And then her turn 3, she sends the Blood Brides and the Grotesques in, and the Blood Brides hit the Scorpex. And this is where not being Strife was a bummer, because she had no access to reroll wounds. So I go -1 to wound, and she does 2 wounds. And at that point, I cleave the Blood Brides back. The Grotesques kind of bounce off the Wraiths. All she had in the top objective was an Archon. Her home was pretty much hers. I wasn't going to go to the home, but it's now I own the middle. Now I own the bottom right. Now I own the top left, and I own my home. You get your home objective for the rest of the game, but this is turn 3, and you took Stranglehold, and also the tertiary. You're not coming out anymore to take them to take the objectives back. So there was this moment for 2 turns where I felt like she was trying to force me to split my forces up, which was really smart, because she recognized she couldn't clear the middle with all the tanky stuff there. So she was forcing me to split my forces up, but I think I assessed correctly where to send my forces and was able to solve that puzzle. But the game ended and she was man, I was trying to split you up by attacking your flanks. And I'm yeah, I noticed that. There was a stressful turn 3 where I'm if I mess this up, she could come back in and steal an objective from me. So this was definitely one of the top games of the tournament for me. Yeah, I learned Dark Eldar still kill stuff. Super killing.
What was the final score of this one?
Final score, yeah. So this one, it was 97 to 66.
Well, have you played against Dark Eldar very much recently, Tyler?
Me? No, I haven't played them since Thick City, since LVO.
They're mad fun now.
Really?
They're super fun to play against, and like solidly A plus level of like this army is obviously super strong in a good player's hands. It's very, very good, but it's not oppressive, I feel like. Especially in the realm in the world of town custodies overlords. Like playing against Dark Eldar is such a breath of fresh air, and it's also really fun. Because you're just awesome. Everyone's running around bashing each other. And yeah. I did you feel that way this game, Nick?
Yeah, I'd say like this game was probably, I mean, tied with the Custodies game. Like that and the Custodies game were my two favorite games of the tournaments. The Custodies game was definitely like the most difficult game, you know, because I lost. But this game also felt like there was like that moment, like turn 2 and 3. I'm like, there's a game going on here. There's like a challenge happening. Like I'm having to like think about where I'm sending my forces. And we're playing this cool, like, you know, flanking maneuver game where we're kind of like rotating our armies around. It was this like fun little engagement going on. I really like that. So
I also like your assessment of this mission. The old sweep and clear was fun in that it was unique, but it was also kind of dumb because sometimes there was matchups where, well, either one army wanted to park in the middle and the other one didn't, so the army that parked in the middle won, or both armies wanted to park in the middle, so whoever had to commit first, something real to the middle, just got smashed, and then it was just very bipolar. Like there was either, it was like yes or no, you win the game based on who goes first or the matchup or whatever, which was not fun. This seems like a lot more, like you were saying, interesting in that you can bounce out to the flanks if the middle isn't going well for you. You can still dogpile the middle and get a lot of points and then go straight to your opponent's back objective.
Yeah.
I actually really like this deployment zone, and I feel like this is probably the biggest glow up mission of the new packet. Well, I don't know about the biggest, but like probably top 3 for sure.
I think Overrun is the biggest glow up.
I liked Overrun. You guys are so full of crap. Overrun was fun.
The other thing about this mission too is like you can't actually just sit in the middle because you get tertiary by taking an objective you didn't hold and or killing models. So you do have to go take a flank back at some point.
Yeah, you guys are both like trading midfield objectives, which is super cool.
Yeah.
This sounds like, I have played every mission except this one so far of the new pack. I'm like 20 games in and still haven't gotten to this one. I'm glad to hear that it's good because Sweep and Clear was the worst mission in the old pack. So seeing it be a much more interesting and balanced game sounds like fun. I still hate the deployment zones, but like that's for another show. Anyway, Nick says that the bomb mission is the best. The bomb mission is so much fun. I freaking love it.
I've heard mixed. People either hate or love the bomb mission. I'm kind of indifferent, honestly.
I have not played it yet, but I'm very excited to because objective secured models complete the action at the end of their turn, and my entire army is objective secured.
Are you ready for a plasma site to plant a bomb?
Cannot do
actions.
You suck.
That would be great.
See, it sounds like a skill issue, Nick. Should have figured that one out. Awesome. Cool. So at the end of the day, you've got good stuff. At the end of the day, you're finishing up 4-1, and you finish in second place, outpacing even Noah and his custodes, because Steve beat the snot out of him too hard in the finals. So big congratulations to you. How are you feeling going forward? What's changing? What's staying the same? What are the big takeaways?
Yeah. So overall impressions. So I matched into a lot of armies that I was familiar with. As you can see, I scored 3 97s. I scored an 87 round 1, which could have like very easily been a 97. And because of my R&D pick in each of those games, those were basically perfect games. So outside of my one loss, I got like 4 perfect games, which I thought was pretty wild. Looking back at them, like these are all armies, I played into a lot, like Space Marines, practice against them all the time. Dark Eldar, I've gotten the snot beaten out of me by them all the time. And now I kind of have like a less of a disadvantage in that matchup because they've gotten nerfed, I've gotten buffed. T-Suns, play against them a lot. So that helped me out. Like, I knew what secondaries to take. I knew how to play the matchup well, right? Like, I wasn't really making many mistakes. So that was nice to see that, like, I hadn't really, because I hadn't played Necron since, like, the summer. I played them in a few practice games here and there, but I hadn't brought them to a tournament since Charity Hammer Prep, which was, like, in July. So I was very happy to see that I hadn't lost many of those skills. I didn't get to really test into the big bads that much, which I think I would have enjoyed for testing purposes. I definitely wouldn't have gone 4-1 if I played like some of the, scarier tile lists there. Like Steve Trimble's list was very scary. And I'm very interested in seeing how this list actually matches up into more Custodes lists and if it is even feasible to beat Tau with this list. There were a few games I like kind of tested my army further, like in that game with Eleanor where I said I knew I was kind of making a bit of like a more aggressive play, but I kind of wanted to like limit test my army. I wanted to see how aggressive can I go and like afford to still like be in this game. Like I felt like I had a pretty good control over the game. And the T-Suns game, he didn't throw anything mid-board, so I normally would have just been like, here's 3 Scarabs, pass. But I was like, I'm going to rush you with my army and like see if I table you. I did. So it kind of allowed me to kind of test the limits of Necrons, which is nice because usually I feel like they're a more defensive army, they're a slower army. I kind of have to play a little more defensively, so I'm not able to actually see what like the total damage output of my army is. And I got to do that a lot this tournament, and it kills things. It kills things very well. What else? I want to practice on keeping the army closer to the king. The downside of this army is everything is faster than the king. The king only moves 8 inches a turn. And everything else is 9+. So, and one of his biggest buffs is the 6-inch reroll wound aura. So I really, really want to work on keeping him closer to the Wraiths and to the Scorpex, so that I can like make some of those closer combats much more in my favor. What else? I'm also even thinking of there's some turns where like the menhirs didn't feel that useful. So the menhirs are heavy weapons. Those are the 2 big pylons on either side of him. All of his other guns are assault. I'm thinking going forward, there might be some turns where I advance him. I actually played a game last night into Eldar where the king was started in the back of the board, and I went first, and I'm like, he's not shooting anything turn 1, so I'm just going to advance him. And he just rolled a 6, so just move 14. So getting him into the fight quicker is smarter, I think. I think that once you kind of learn how to deploy him in such a way that he doesn't get aced, then you just accept that he has to come out with the rest of your army like turn 1 or 2. And you got to get him in there quick because you got to get his buffs out there. You got to get him in the melee. He's got to be doing things. Protocols. I know people aren't super hot on Necron protocols. My standard protocols is usually just like a defensive 1 turn 1, and then +1 strength turn 2 and 3, and then just kind of some non-important ones turn 4 and 5. And I usually put like the +1 move or the extra aura range off to the side as like flexible command protocols to bring in. I'm actually thinking of maybe putting the +1 strength off to the side and doing the +1 move turn 2 and 3. So my army's just like super fast on those go turns. And the king benefits from protocols. So now, he's a little bit faster. He moves 9 now. So that'd be kind of cool. What else? Yeah, so that's the overall impressions. I got like little notes here on consulting.
How do you think that Necrons are stacking up in the power rankings right now? Like obviously it's Tau and Custodes, and then everything else seems to be kind of a mess right now. Do you think they can fight anyone else happily? Where do you think they're fitting them right now?
I think before this tournament, I would have said like maybe mid to low B tier. I'm thinking now they're like low A, mid A. They're feeling pretty good. Like other armies that I consider A, like I'm not scared of Marines. I'm not scared of T-Suns. I'm somewhat scared of Dark Eldar. I think it's a Dark Eldar favored matchup, but I think I can win that matchup. I mean, as evidence here. Same thing with Orcs. I think it's Orc favored, but I feel a lot better into Orcs now than I did in the past. Sisters, I think that's seems a bit like a wash, but like that's another A tier army. Maybe some people don't agree with that, but yeah. Admech, I don't really know what the Admech builds are like these days. I think I could do okay into them. I really think a lot of the armies, it's like they're slightly favored into me or like a bit of a wash. And then there's armies like I said, T-Suns, Death Guard, Marines that I'm like way favored into.
I think a lot of the question comes down to your army is a little bit of T7 and then like 90 toughness 5 wounds.
Yeah.
So a lot of the question is, how well do you deal with toughness 5? When you were listing all the armies that were pretty bad into you, the common themes I was hearing was like a ton of strength 4.
Yeah.
Like all those times where you're like, the Death Watch ran into me and I -1 to wounded, so he did 1 wound to me and I killed him. Or the Blood Brides ran into me and they're strength 4, so I -1 to wounded and they did nothing. Toughness strength 4 is just not good into this army. And unless you have like large volumes of strength 5, 6, and 10, you're not going to have a good time into this army at the end of the day, because it doesn't have advance and charge, but it's pretty fast with the pregame move and the new core buffs giving the +1 to move. You can be surprised with how fast it moves, and everything is obsec, so even if it doesn't kill you very well at the end of the day, it's getting a lot of points. Like all of Nick's 97 point games aren't anomalous, right? It's pretty easy for him to smash you on the primary and smash you on the secondary, right? So yeah, I mean, I also agree with you. I think Necrons are solidly like A- tier. In a world where town custodies don't exist, I mean, maybe this is a hot take, or maybe it's a bad take, but I think they're like in the top tier of armies if town custodies aren't ridiculous mode like they are. I don't know how you feel about that. Like in a world where tower custodies aren't mega broken, do you feel like Necrons are like in the top cut of armies, or are they a whole tier below?
I don't think I put them in like the top 5, but probably like right below those guys, if that makes sense. It seems like they have a hard time into like the A tier armies, slightly like slightly unfavored, but anything that's like below that, and I guess when I say A tier armies, I mean like in my mind like Sisters, Dark Eldar. I'd probably put Admech in there, Orcs. I think those are like 4 armies that aren't like super insanely overpowered, but they're good. And I think
You don't get to mention Tyler, screw you.
Bugs don't exist. There are 3 different bug factions, all of which are in that tier. None of them matter. Go on.
Yeah, sorry. I forgot the Tau. Yeah, okay. I don't play the Nids that much. But yes, Nids in there. And GSC. I guess Forces is kind of the same thing. I think that if Tau were removed, then GSC and Nids and Orcs would be way stronger, and Orcs would be able to switch back to the lists that gave Necrons a hard time. And I think that would bump Necrons a little bit more like, hey, you're solidly A- now, guys. But I think right now they're like, hey, we're creeping into A tier, and the other A tier guys are like, all right, but we're a little bit better than you, you know.
It also is worth mentioning that Crusher probably done this.
That was the thing. Crusher ruins this list.
Crusher destroys this list. My entire thing is they have my damage output because my entire
I do think Nick is pretty good into like the old forces and that kind of stuff.
Oh, for sure. I'm terrified of this. This would give me a headache for sure. Piloted correctly, like it's so much moving so quickly that I don't like the gaunts are useless because they go into Scorpex and they wound on 6s. Gross. They're pretty good into Wraith still, but like, and they really hate getting tagged. It'd not be a good time. The acolytes will do pretty. What were you gonna do? Oh, and then the Scorpec dude, the Gloctopus, the Hexmark. Yeah, that guy. Yeah, no, forces don't want a piece of this.
Yep.
No thanks. I'll play it if I have to, but it is I don't want anything to do with that.
I also played into New Eldar last night, and something we found out in that matchup was their troops seem really bad. So Necrons. Eldar have very little obsec then. I know that they have like the Phoenix Lords that give obsec, and there's like a Dire Avenger Exarch power for obsec, and there's also a Psychic power for obsec. But like that compared to my whole army being obsec, I was just able to like deny his primary like so much that it just like strangleholded him down and won me the game. Their damage output's really good, like New Eldar, because like they can give a unit full hit rerolls and doom a unit, right? So full wound rerolls versus that unit. But they're all like D3, and my stuff's all like strength 5 or strength 6, so I'm just wounded on 2s. So I'm just like cutting his army down. I do think they can alpha this army really hard. I went first in the game I played last night, so if he went first, it might have been a little different. But I think Eldar are about to come in and be like a pretty solid A tier faction, and I think Crons, it's again like they can play well into them, but maybe slightly disadvantaged.
Okay, interesting. Cool. Well, congratulations, man, on a fantastic finish to start off the season. Second out of, what was it, 39?
39, yeah. There were
Very
40.
respectable.
Someone dropped immediately, sadly.
So it goes. Still, second, fantastic stuff. Really good point showings, and I cannot wait to see how these do in the future. Are you taking this list tomorrow?
Yeah, I was thinking of maybe changing it, but Lucas is like, dude, you only played it like 7 games. Go play it more. I'm like, okay. I'm keeping
Sounds
an eye
good
on
to
a few things. If we have time for me to quickly go over those, or
Sure, yeah, go for it.
yeah, things I'm keeping an eye on. I'm looking at the command barge. It's 160 points, which is basically the cost of 5 Scorpex. I know I can only bring 4 more Scorpex until I have the max 18. But still, it's like, okay, is this guy worth it? Some games, his damage output's pretty low because he only has 7 shots, but he's really tanky. Transhuman, T6, rotate to a 4 pinball, -1 damage. And so, but I'm keeping an eye on him. I'm like, he could be slotted out for more damage if I need damage over.
How many Scarabs could he be if he wanted to be?
Scarabs are what, 15 points a model? So he could be like 10.
He's better than 10 Scarabs, absolutely.
Yeah. I think the thing is, though, is like, because Scarabs are like a cheap OBSEC unit, but like with my whole army being OBSEC, I don't think. I patrol Vanguard, so I don't have any more fast attack slots. I'm using all 4 of them. So I'd have to change the list around quite a bit. I like the squad of 3 for if I go first and I take Stranglehold, I throw 3 Scarabs somewhere and I go, cool, kill these guys. I get Stranglehold. I lost 45 points if you kill them. I don't really like more than that. I think the big blobs of Scarabs are pretty bad. I mean, maybe you could take a bunch with Chronos, but yeah, not really what I would.
I guess the other option is like Tomb Blades. Does that intrigue you?
No.
Okay. Moving on then.
Yeah, they're really expensive. I think because you have to pay points for the 3 of armor, you have to pay points for the 5 pinball. They're only -1 to hit and shooting. The game right now is very melee focused. And I also, something I love about my army is since it's melee and OBSEC, I will be coming at you, killing your stuff, then coming onto your objective and sitting there, and now you need to come clear me. If my Tomb Blades are flying over the objective, they're going to be really easy to punch away. So
makes sense.
Yeah.
All right.
I also, those models are atrocious to build. You couldn't pay me to build those models.
All right, so that's a wrap on Nic's GT. We have run super long, but Lucas and I did want to have a quick chat at the end about some of our recent incidences into Tau and whatnot.
I mean, we can make quick mention of it and then go more in depth next week when we only have an RTT to talk about. How about that?
Sure, sounds good. Cool. You want to go
Go
first?
for it, dude.
Oh, okay.
No, you go for it.
Yeah, so I was at an RTT last week. 2 weeks ago, the last time we recorded this podcast, I had said that I would be bringing a Hierophant to that RTT. That ended up not happening because of some modeling issues. My Hierophant is wonky, not like the physical model, but my paint is being messed up. So I took double Hive Guard forces instead, and that went excellently. I did end up dropping a game there into Custodes on a rerollable 5-inch charge, which is what it is. But I beat Tau. Straight ahead. Not a fantastic Tau. Player is a little bit newer, not a super optimized list, similar to Nic's game. Cool, but it got me the information to then play into some better Tau last night. I played into Seth from Signals from the Frontline and his Tau, and brought down the hammer of the forces of the Hive Mind. So I'm looking forward to that list doing some more fun stuff. And look forward to some more about that before the new NIDS book comes out. But yeah. Forces, maybe they can hang. We'll find out. How have your games been going lately, Lucas?
Yeah, terribly. I've basically acknowledged that until Tau got a hotfix, which they deserve, and if you don't believe that, I'm sorry for your mental state. They deserve a hotfix, and until then, Orcs just cannot beat them. Orcs are an army that fundamentally wants to put everything in the mid board, and your opponent hopefully can't kill it all. And every army can't kill it all except for Tau, and they kill everything 100% of the time, which is stupid. So I've just realized that Tau is basically unwinnable, and maybe I'll try to do some tech for Custodes and now get some more Custodes practice, because that's theoretically somewhat winnable. I have a ton of high strength, high damage, high AP, not super dependent on rerolls stuff that I can put in the mid board. But I mean, and I still feel confident in the other A tier factions. It's just I will never win a tournament right now because Tau exists. So I'm just going to keep grinding and playing as much as I can, and getting face bashed by Tau to put me in my place, I guess. But it is what it is. Yeah. I'm playing. So tomorrow, Nic and I are going to an RTT in Hoquiam, which, by the way, if you're in the Pacific Northwest and you haven't signed up for that RTT and you're not coming, you should. It's called the it's in my honor because of the because I made it to the Shadow Round. What is it called?
Well, you made it to the top 16 according to the title of this tournament.
You know what? Apparently, I didn't make it at all, according to GW. So that is what it is.
What are you talking about, Lucas? No Orc players went undefeated. You clearly lost a game. Don't be ridiculous.
If you're in the Northwest and you want to come hang out with us at an RTT, come to the Lucas Made the Top 16 Beans for Everyone tournament in Hoquiam, Washington. Lucas spelled with a C because Jason Bird. So yeah, come to that. We'll be hanging out tomorrow playing an RTT at Lion Gaming. It's going to be really fun. Tyler's got the bean photo. The homie got the hookup. Let's go.
There will be beans at the event. Complimentary beans for everyone.
Food. This event is going to be awesome. There's going to be so much food.
He's making beans, chili.
To be clear, if you're listening to this on a podcast app, the tournament was last week. Sorry you missed it. But if you're one of the 13 people here right now, have we got a show for you?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I'm bringing Gaz and a bunch of wagons and Meganobs to that, kind of similar to Mark Perry, but no killicans because I hate fun. So yeah, I'm just spamming a bunch of thick boy orcs and trying to run at my opponent, screaming like a maniac.
I think there's a question for you too. Nick in the chat was asking how you have found your lists without truck boys.
I'm still very undecided on it. I feel like to beat Custodes, truck boys, it's so hard because like if you take truck boys out, you're weaker into things like Dark Eldar, Gene Stealer cults, things that want to play more tricksy and aren't super hard to kill. So for those kind of matchups, I want to include truck boys, and those are all A-tier factions that legitimately can give me a very hard game. I haven't played into Eldar yet, but I know GSC and Dark Eldar pretty well. In the Custodes, truck boys suck. They just don't do anything. The Mr. Worldwide comes in and gives them don't pile in -1 attack, and then just nothing happens. So you really need to cram all of your Goff stuff into the middle of the table with Gaskell and just try to connect with as much of it as possible. Because when Goffs do connect with Custodes, like you can turn off my rerolls in one place, but I'm going to have a lot of characters that are all going to have rerolls from Gaz, and they're all going to hit super hard and put you on the invul, and they're all going to do 3 damage. So, like, I'm going to do a lot of damage to you. It's just a matter of weighing, do you want to try to tech for the Custodes matchup? Tau's doomed anyway. Or do you want to tech for the A-tier matchups? And I really haven't struck a balance with that. I mean, if Eldar is really popular in the Northwest, I'm going to be playing more truck boys. But until then, people are going to be spamming Custodes up here, and I want to kill some golden gits because I hate them. So that's where I'm at right now. Yeah, 100% agree into Custodes. I mean, yeah. Goffs are still the way to go. Even with the ridiculous points nerfs, Goffs still slap super hard. It's just you're changing which units you take. I'm solidly in the camp of 15 Meganobs now. Maybe 1 unit of Truckmans. Yeah, I think... Let's talk about this next week after my RTT games because we're almost at 2 hours. But I think 1 unit of truckers and 2 units of Goffs is probably a good split.
Cool. So,
Say one thing, yeah. I also saw that Noah snuck in here at the end. He said that his game against me was by far his funnest. I want to say thank you, Noah, for a great game. Really enjoyed
Noah's
it.
Such a G. I mean, all the Dark Tower guys are awesome.
Absolutely.
Bummed to see you aren't going to be able to make it to the RTT, but I'm excited for the next tournament that you will be at.
Awesome. Well, if you enjoyed this conversation and want to keep it going, we are going to be in the Discord as we are basically 24/7 at all points in time. join us in that. Just head over to patreon.com/bestintabletop. It's linked in the description. It's linked in the whatever. Hopefully, go on over there, drop it. It's only $10 a month. It is the best return on investment in the game of 40K. Sorry, Art of War. We have Art of War doesn't have Paul Winters. Maybe they do. I don't know. Anyway, but come on in and come and chat with us. We would love to talk with y'all. Also, make sure you're checking out all the other shows on the network. We got 40K Fight Club. We got BIFPOD OG should be dropping the day after this one does. The brand new show 40K Frontiers just dropped. They're talking about like East Asia and the Australia metas. All sorts of crazy stuff going on over there. You don't want to miss it. And there's other stuff that I can't talk about, but it's going to be cool. Trust me. I don't think I missed anyone shows. Did I miss a show? If I missed a show, I'm sorry. We're doing a lot of cool stuff right now. Cannot wait.
Get Outer Realms?
Pardon? Oh yeah, Outer Realms on the extended network. They got episodes coming up about the Hexagoda lore. Very excited. That should be coming out maybe a week after this one. So check out all the other content. Jump into the Discord. Join the Patreon. It's a great time. It keeps the lights on, and we can't wait to see you there. So without further ado, I've been Tyler.
I've been Nick.
I'm Lucas.
Thanks for joining us, and we will see you next time.
Later, boys.
Have a good one.